Alex had never imagined his first diplomatic mission would take him to the distant planet of Taloria. It was a beautiful world, full of vast cities made of shining stone, with tall buildings and wide, peaceful streets. The Talorians were a proud and ancient species, their culture rich with history. Their city was filled with stunning architecture and colorful gardens that seemed to bloom in every direction. But despite the beauty around him, Alex felt like a stranger. His mission was simple: represent Earth in the growing alliance between humans and Talorians. The Talorian leadership was keen on forming stronger ties with Earth, and Alex's team had been chosen to oversee the negotiations. As the youngest soldier in the group, Alex felt out of place. His job wasn't to negotiate, but to stand by, watch, and learn. It was during one of the diplomatic meetings when Alex first saw her. Lyra, she was a Talorian princess, and her presence immediately caught his attention. She wasn't like the others in the room. While the Talorian leaders spoke with confidence, Lyra sat quietly, her eyes focused on the holographic display in front of her. Alex noticed that her face, usually so composed, seemed to soften when her gaze met his. He didn't know why, but there was something about her that seemed different from everyone else. Lyra was beautiful, but it wasn't just her appearance. There was a calm, almost mysterious energy around her, as though she carried the weight of 1,000 thoughts. During the meeting, Alex found it hard to concentrate. Every time he glanced in her direction, he caught her eyes on him, only for her to quickly look away. Each time their gazes met, she would blush. It was subtle, but Alex could see it. Her pale green skin would change shades, faint pinkish hue creeping across her cheeks. At first, Alex thought it was just a coincidence. Maybe she was nervous, or perhaps he had done something that caught her attention in a way that embarrassed her. But as the day went on, it happened again and again. Every time their eyes met, her cheeks would turn the same shade of pink, and she would look away quickly. Alex was puzzled. He had met Talorians before, and while they were known for being reserved, none of them had ever acted like this around him. He was a human, and from what he understood, humans were not held in the same regard as other species in the galaxy. To be honest, Alex wasn't sure how he felt about being so far from Earth, away from his friends and family. But there was something about Lyra that he couldn't ignore. By the end of the meeting, Alex was filled with questions. Why was Lyra blushing? Was it because of him? What did it mean? But he didn't dare ask anyone. It wasn't proper to discuss the personal feelings of a royal family member, especially one as high-ranking as Lyra. So, he did what he always did when he was confused. He kept quiet. Over the next few days, Alex kept seeing Lyra in the hallways and at other diplomatic meetings. Each time they crossed paths, she would blush, almost as if she couldn't help it. But as the days went by, something strange started to happen. Instead of looking away quickly, Lyra began to glance at Alex for just a second longer before looking down. It was as if she was studying him, trying to understand him the way he had been trying to understand her. Alex wasn't sure what to make of it. He had spent years learning about other species and their cultures, but Taloria was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The Talorians were not an aggressive people, but they were proud and they valued their traditions and honor. Above all else, they were known for their strong sense of duty, and yet here was Lyra, someone who was clearly breaking some unwritten rule about avoiding human contact. One afternoon, while walking back to his quarters, Alex found himself caught off guard. He turned a corner and found Lyra standing there, looking up at him with her wide, pale blue eyes. Her cheeks were flushed again, and she quickly turned her head away, her long silver hair cascading down her back like a waterfall. Alex hesitated, unsure of what to do. He had never spoken to her directly, but now seemed like a chance. He took a deep breath and approached her cautiously. "Excuse me, Princess Lyra," Alex said, his voice low but steady. Lyra froze for a moment, then slowly turned her head toward him. For a brief moment their eyes met again, and Alex saw that familiar blush rise to her face. But this time, she didn't look away immediately. Instead, she just stood there, silently watching him. Her lips slightly parted as if she wanted to say something but didn't know how to begin. Is there something you wanted to ask me? Alex said, trying to keep his voice even. Lyra seemed to hesitate for a moment longer before she spoke, her voice soft. No, I was just passing by. It was a simple answer, but something in her tone made him feel like there was more to the story. Before he could say anything else, Lyra gave him a quick glance, her blush still present, and walked away, leaving Alex standing there, confused and intrigued. For the rest of the day, Alex couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. Why had she blushed? What was it that made her react to him like that? As much as he tried to focus on his mission, he found himself distracted by the memory of her eyes and that soft, almost shy smile that seemed to appear whenever their gazes met. For the next few days, Alex couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. Her soft, shy smiles and the way her cheeks would turn pink every time their eyes met kept him up at night. He had tried to focus on his work and the diplomatic meetings, but his thoughts always seemed to drift back to her. It was strange, and he didn't know why she had such an effect on him. He had met many people during his time in space, but none had ever made him feel the way Lyra did. During the next few diplomatic events, Alex tried his best to stay focused. He watched as the Talarians spoke with each other, their smooth voices filled with pride. They discussed everything from trade agreements to technological advancements. But no matter how important the discussions were, Alex found himself distracted, always looking over at Lyra. She wasn't like the other Talarians. She wasn't as confident or loud, and she never interrupted the leaders with her opinions. Instead, she would sit quietly, her large, expressive eyes focused on the conversations around her. And every time their gazes met, she would blush again. Alex began to wonder what it all meant. Was she embarrassed by him, or was there something else going on? He didn't want to make things awkward by asking her directly, but the way she looked at him, the way she smiled, something about it felt like more than just a casual glance. One evening, as Alex walked through the corridors of the Talorian embassy, he saw Lyra standing near a large window. She was looking out at the stars, her hands gently resting on the railing. The warm light from the setting sun reflected off her silver hair, making it seem like it was glowing. Alex stopped for a moment, mesmerized by how peaceful and beautiful she looked. He hesitated, wondering if he should speak to her. He had never been one to shy away from talking to people, but this felt different. Something about Lyra made him feel unsure of himself. After taking a deep breath, he decided to approach her. "Princess Lyra," Alex said, trying to sound casual. Lyra turned around, startled for a moment, but then her face softened when she saw it was him.
Oh.
Her cheeks flushed. Again, just like they always did. Alex couldn't help but notice it. He was sure it wasn't just because of the conversation. It was something more. But he didn't push it. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," Alex said, glancing at the window. "The view is beautiful," Lyra replied quietly. She looked down for a moment, as if thinking. Then she looked up at Alex, her expression thoughtful. "I sometimes come here to think," she said softly. "The stars remind me of home." Alex smiled gently, feeling the connection between them growing. "You miss it, don't you?" he asked, sensing the sadness in her voice. Lyra nodded, her eyes looking far away. "Sometimes," she said, "Taloria is a beautiful place, but it is also full of expectations. People always expect things from me, things I'm not sure I can give." Alex didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure if he could truly understand her feelings, but he wanted to. "It sounds like a lot to carry," he said. "It is," Lyra agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I suppose that's the life of a princess." They stood in silence for a moment, both of them looking out at the stars. Alex wasn't sure why, but this quiet moment felt significant. Felt like Lyra was letting her guard down a little. It was a rare moment of vulnerability, and it made Alex realize how much he wanted to know more about her world, her life, and what she truly thought about all the things she had to carry. "I don't think you're alone in this," Alex said softly. "I know I'm just a soldier, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here." Lyra turned to face him, her cheeks flushed once again, but this time there was no awkwardness in her expression. Instead, there was a soft smile. "Thank you, Alex," she said quietly. "That means a lot." For a moment their eyes met, and there was a silence that wasn't uncomfortable but peaceful. It was as if they both understood something without needing to say it. Alex felt a warmth spread through him, and for the first time since arriving on Taloria, he felt like he truly belonged here, not as a diplomat, not as a soldier, but as someone who could be there for another person. Lyra seemed to sense it. Too, her eyes softened, and for a brief moment, Alex saw a flicker of something more than friendship in her gaze. But before he could say anything else, she quickly looked away. "I should go," Lyra said, almost as if she was shaking herself from a dream. "It's getting late," Alex nodded. "Of course, I'll see you tomorrow," as Lyra replied, her voice barely audible. "Tomorrow." As she walked away, Alex stood there for a moment, staring at the stars. He couldn't help but smile. There was something special about Lyris, something he hadn't expected to find here. And even though he wasn't sure what was happening between them, he knew. One thing for sure, he wanted to know her better. With that thought in his mind, Alex turned and walked back to his quarters, his heart feeling lighter than it had in days. The next few days felt like they were moving in slow motion for Alex. He couldn't stop thinking about the quiet moments he'd shared with Lyra, the way her eyes met his, the soft blush that would rise in her cheeks whenever their gazes crossed. It was all starting to make sense. She wasn't just being polite or shy. There was something more, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Alex had learned over the past few days that the Talorians were a proud species. But Lyra was different. Her beauty wasn't just in her appearance, her soft features, her shining silver hair, and the glow of her blue eyes. It was also in the way she spoke, the way she carried herself. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and kind. But there was a distance to her, a barrier she kept up around herself that night. After another long meeting with the Talorian leaders, Alex decided to do something he hadn't planned. He wanted to talk to Lyra again. He needed to understand what was happening between them, even if he wasn't sure what it all meant yet. He made his way through the hallways of the Talorian embassy, his heart beating faster than usual. He had to find her. His thoughts were racing, and he could feel a mix of excitement and nervousness building inside him. As he reached the garden area, where the stars were visible through the tall glass windows, he spotted her. Lyra was standing by herself, staring out into the vast sky. Alex hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach her. He had always been good with words, but something about Lyra made him feel nervous, but he couldn't let the moment pass. He took a deep breath and walked toward her. "Princess Lyra," called gently. She turned around, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw him. For a brief moment their gazes met, and she blushed once again, that familiar shade of pink coloring her cheeks. Alex noticed it immediately and felt a small smile tug at the corners of his lips. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Alex said, his voice calm but unsure. "I just wanted to talk to you, if you don't mind." Lyra seemed to hesitate for a moment, before nodding. "Of course, Alex," she replied softly. "What's on your mind?" Alex took a step closer, careful not to crowd her. I wanted to know if you were okay. You seem to be carrying a lot, and I can't help but wonder if you're all right." Lyra looked down for a moment, her hands fidgeting with the fabric of her robe. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice lacked the usual confidence. "Just sometimes it's hard. Being a princess comes with a lot of expectations, and I feel like I'm always being watched. People want things from me that I'm not sure I can give." Alex felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. He'd always admired Lyra's strength and composure, but now he could see the cracks in her armor. She was more than just a princess. She was a person, struggling with her own feelings and doubts. "You don't have to be perfect all the time," Alex said quietly. "No one expects that from you. You don't have to carry everything alone." Lyra met his eyes, her blue gaze intense. "You don't understand," she said softly. "I've been taught to be strong, to hide my weaknesses, to lead, not to be led, but with you, Alex, it's different. You make me feel like I can be myself." Alex's heart skipped a beat. Hadn't expected her to say that. He'd always seen her as the perfect Talorian, princess, strong, poised, and untouchable. But here she was, confessing something more vulnerable than he could have imagined. For the first time, he saw the true Lyra, not the princess, but the person. "I don't want you to hide who you are, Lyra," Alex said, stepping a little closer. "You don't have to be anything but yourself around me," the words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, and for the first time since they had met, Alex felt like he was connecting with Lyra on a deeper level. There was no tension, no awkwardness, just the two of them. Standing in the garden, sharing an unspoken understanding, Lyra's blush deepened, but she didn't look away this time. Instead, she took a step closer to him. "Thank you, Alex," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You don't know how much that means to me." Alex felt something stir inside him. He had known Lyra for a short time, but already she had become someone he cared about deeply. It wasn't just about attraction anymore. It was about trust and honesty and a connection that went beyond words. For a moment, they just stood there, side by side, looking out at the stars. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the soft rustle of the wind and the quiet hum of the city in the distance. Alex didn't want to break the silence, didn't want to ruin the perfect moment they had created. Finally, Lyra spoke again, her voice full of uncertainty. "I've been thinking a lot lately, about you, Alex. About us." Alex turned to her, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" "I don't know what's happening between us," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. "But I can't ignore it any more. I don't want to." Alex took her hand gently in his heart beating faster than before. "I don't know what this is either, Lyra, but I want to find out." As they stood together, looking up at the stars, something shifted. Between them wasn't just a moment of connection, it was the beginning of something more. Something neither of them had expected, but both of them wanted to explore. The next few days passed in a blur of quiet conversations and stolen moments. Alex couldn't help but feel like something had changed between him and Lyra. They had started spending more time together, and each time they met, it felt like they were opening up to each other a little more. Lyra no longer seemed so distant or reserved. Her blushes, once so frequent, now seemed like a sign of something deeper, a connection that was growing stronger every day. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Alex found himself walking through the corridors of the embassy once again. He wasn't sure why, but he felt the urge to see Lyra. They hadn't had much time alone recently, and he missed their talks. He missed her quiet presence, the way her voice seemed to soothe his mind. As he turned the corner, he spotted her standing in the same place as before, by the window, gazing out at the stars. The soft glow of the lights in the garden made her silver hair shine even more brightly. Alex hesitated for a moment, his heart racing. He wasn't sure what he was feeling. Was it just curiosity, or was it something more? Taking a deep breath, Alex walked toward her, his footsteps quiet against the stone floor. As he approached, he noticed that Lyra was holding something in her hands, a small, delicate object that she was turning over and over as she stared out at the sky. When she noticed him, she looked up, her face softening as soon as she saw him. "Alex," she said, her voice gentle and calm. "I didn't expect you to come by. I've been thinking about you," Alex admitted, his voice lower than usual. "I wanted to see you." Lyra smiled, a faint blush rising on her cheeks once again, though this time she didn't look away. There was something different about her now, a confidence that hadn't been there before. She had always been beautiful, but now there was a strength in her eyes, a sense of self that Alex hadn't seen before. It made her even more captivating. "I've been thinking about you too," Lyra said softly, stepping away from the window. She walked toward him, her movements graceful and sure. "There's something I need to tell you, Alex. Something I've been holding back." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling this was going to be important. "What is it?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Lyra took a deep breath before she spoke, her eyes looking into his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "I've never felt this way before. I've always been taught to hide my emotions, to be strong and composed. But when I'm with you, it feels different. I feel ... more alive, more vulnerable. and I don't know what to do with these feelings." Alex felt a wave of warmth wash over him. He had never imagined that Lyra, someone so poised and powerful, could feel the same way. He stepped closer, his voice soft as he spoke. "I know what you mean. I've never felt this way either. You've made me feel something I didn't expect, something I didn't think was possible." Lyra smiled again, and this time her blush deepened, but she didn't look away. Instead, she took another step closer to him, closing the space between them. Alex could feel the electricity in the air, a tension that neither of them could deny. For the first time, he realized that they were both standing on the edge of something new, something neither of them had planned for, but both of them wanted. "I'm scared," Lyra confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of what this means. I'm a princess, Alex. I have responsibilities, expectations, and you, ... you're human. There are so many things that could get in the way." Alex reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I don't know where this is going, Lyra, but I know one thing for sure. I don't want to let you go." Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and something else, something softer. "You don't?" she asked, her voice filled with a quiet wonder. "No," Alex said firmly. "I don't." For a moment they stood there, their hands gently clasped together, neither of them knowing what the future would bring. But in that moment it didn't matter. All that mattered was the connection they had found, something pure, something real. They didn't need to have all the answers. They just needed to be together, to trust in what they felt. Then, without warning, Lyra did something that took Alex by surprise. She gently pulled him toward her, her hand resting on his chest. Her eyes were full of warmth and uncertainty, but there was something else there too, a kind of quiet resolve. "I want to take a chance," Lyra said softly. "I want to see where this can go with you, but I need to know you'll be there, that you won't walk away when things get hard." Alex nodded without hesitation. "I promise, Lyra. I'm not going anywhere." Lyra smiled, her blush deepening once again, but this time she didn't look away. Instead, she took another step closer, closing the distance between them completely. For the first time, they were not just two people from different worlds. They were two people who had found something real, something worth fighting for. As Alex leaned in, he knew that this moment, this decision, would change everything. He was ready to face whatever came next. As long as Lyra was by his side, the days that followed felt like they were moving faster than ever. Alex and Lyra had begun spending more time together. Their conversations, once tentative and unsure, had grown more open, more honest. They shared stories of their world's Alex, told her about Earth, its cities, its people, and its strange sense of humor. Lyra shared tales of Teloria's ancient history, of the people she had known, and the responsibility she had always felt as a princess. There were moments of laughter, moments of silence, and moments when neither of them needed to say a word. They simply enjoyed each other's presence. It felt easy, like something that had always been meant to happen. But despite the growing connection between them, there was still the question of what they were really building. Lyra had never been one to follow the traditional path laid out for her. She was still a princess, and with that title came heavy expectations. She had spent her whole life preparing to lead her people, to be a symbol of strength and grace. But now, when she looked at Alex, she saw something else, someone who made her feel like she could be more than just a princess. He made her feel like she could be herself, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on her. She was still the princess of Teloria. She was still bound by the responsibilities of her position, and Alex, ... he was still human. Their worlds were different in ways that couldn't be ignored, no matter how much they wanted to. Alex, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about the future. He had never expected to feel this way about an alien princess. He had come to Teloria as part of a mission, a soldier among diplomats, but somewhere along the way, his role had changed. He had come to care for Lyra in a way that was deeper than he had ever anticipated. But like Lyra, he knew that their situation wasn't simple. There were complications, things they couldn't control, things that could pull them apart. one evening as they sat together in a quiet garden inside the embassy, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something needed to be said. He could see the worry in Lyra's eyes, the way she kept glancing at the sky, as if waiting for something to change. Her usual calm demeanor was nowhere to be found. "Lyra," Alex said gently, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on? You seem distant." Lyra sighed, her eyes flicking to the ground. She was silent for a long moment before speaking, her voice soft but clear. "I've been thinking, Alex, about everything. About us." Alex felt a tightness in his chest. He had known this moment would come, but that didn't make it any easier. He knew that Lyra had her doubts, her fears, but he couldn't deny the bond they had. He couldn't ignore the way his heart felt whenever she was near. "I know our worlds are different," Lyra continued, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I know the things I'm expected to do as a princess, and I know you're not a Tellurian, you're human. That makes everything harder. I don't know what it means for us. I don't know what the future holds." Alex reached out, placing his hand gently on hers. "We don't have to have all the answers right now," he said quietly. "I don't know where this is going either, but I know that I want to be here. I want to be with you." Lyra met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. "But what happens when everything changes?" she asked. "What happens when we have to face the truth of who we are, and we can't just hide away in the quiet moments we share?" Alex squeezed her hand gently. "We face it together. Whatever happens, we figure it out together. I'm not going anywhere." Lyra took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "You're sure? This isn't just a moment, a passing thing?" Alex nodded. "I'm sure. I don't know what the future holds for us, Lyra, but I know that I care about you. More than I ever thought possible." For the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself to relax. She let out a soft laugh, a sound that seemed so rare and precious coming from her. "You always know what to say," she said, her eyes softening. Alex smiled, his heart light. "I don't know about that, but I know what I feel, and what I feel is real." Lyra nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "I've never been with someone like you before," she said quietly. "You're different from anyone I've ever known, but that's not a bad thing. I'm just scared. Scared of everything we can't control." Alex's smile faded a little, and he gently lifted her chin, making sure she looked at him. "It's okay to be scared," he said softly, "but I won't let that stop us. Whatever comes, we'll face it. Together." For a long moment, they just sat there, their hands still intertwined. Neither of them had any answers, but somehow in that moment, it didn't matter. They had each other, and that was enough for now. Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes as she breathed in the peaceful night air. Alex wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. They didn't need to say anything more. Future was uncertain, but they had time to figure it out. For now, that was enough. The days following their quiet conversation felt different. There was a sense of change between Alex and Lyra, a shift in the way they saw each other and in the way they connected. They no longer hid their feelings, no longer danced around what was obvious. The bond they shared had deepened, and neither of them was willing to let go of it, no matter how uncertain the future seemed. But despite the closeness they had found, something still lingered between them, something unspoken. Lyra's responsibilities, the expectations of her people, were never far from her mind. She couldn't help but worry about the consequences of her actions, about the weight of her title. As much as she wanted to be with Alex, she knew that being with him meant defying the rules of her world. And that wasn't something she took lightly. One evening, as the sun set over the distant hills of Telluria, Lyra stood alone in her private quarters, looking out at the stars. She had always found peace in the silence of the night, but tonight the quiet felt different. She was torn between what she wanted and what was expected of her. She had never felt so conflicted in her life. The door to her room creaked open, and Alex stepped inside. He had learned to knock, but he knew that Lyra didn't mind his company. He had been visiting her often lately, and each time felt like a step closer to something neither of them could ignore. "Lyra." Alex's voice was soft, almost tentative. She turned, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment, everything else faded. There was no title, no responsibility, just the two of them, standing in the same room. "I didn't hear you come in," she said, her voice quiet but warm. Alex smiled, his eyes never leaving hers. "I wanted to give you some space," he said, walking toward her slowly. "But I couldn't stay away." Lyra's heart fluttered at his words. It was the simple, honest way he spoke to her that always made her feel at ease. With him, she didn't have to pretend to be perfect. She didn't have to hide behind the walls she had built for so long. "I've been thinking about us," Lyra said, her voice shaky with uncertainty. "About what this means, about what it could mean. For my future?" Alex stepped closer, gently taking her hand in his. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice soft, as if he already knew the answer. "I mean, I've always had a path laid out for me," Lyra said, her gaze drifting to the window.
Oh.
"Always known what was expected of me. I've been taught to be strong, to lead. But now, with you, ... She hesitated, looking at him as if searching for the right words. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know how to balance everything." Alex's heart ached for her, understood the weight of her words, the pressure she was under. But he also knew that Lyra deserved more than just the burden of a title. She deserved to be happy, to make her own choices. "You don't have to carry everything alone," Alex said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm not asking you to choose between me and your responsibilities, but I want you to know that I'm here. Whatever happens, I'm here for you." Lyra met his gaze, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. But what if it's not enough? What if our worlds are too different? Alex shook his head, stepping closer to her. "I don't know what the future holds, Lyra, but I know that we can figure it out together. We don't have to have all the answers right now." For a long moment, they just stood there, their hands still intertwined. There was no grand declaration, no promises of forever, just the simple truth that they cared for each other, and that was enough. Lyra's mind raced with thoughts of her duties, of her people, of the life she had always known. But in that moment, she realized something. As much as she had been taught to follow the rules, to be the perfect princess, she was still a person. And as a person, she had the right to choose her own path. "I don't know what this will mean for us," Lyra said, her voice steady now. "But I do know that I don't want to lose what we have." Alex smiled, his heart swelling with relief. "Neither do I." With that, they shared a quiet moment, their connection growing stronger. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was real, and for both of them, that was all they needed. Later that evening, after Alex had left, Lyra sat in her room, deep in thought. She knew that the road ahead would not be simple. There would be challenges, and there would be moments of doubt. But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face whatever came her way. With Alex by her side, she knew that she didn't have to face it alone. As she looked out at the stars once more, she smiled softly to herself. The future was uncertain, but she wasn't afraid. Whatever happened, she had made a choice, and that was something she could be proud of. The days after their conversation felt like a new beginning. Lyra and Alex had decided to take things one step at a time, to face the challenges ahead together. There was still uncertainty about what their future would look like, but they were no longer hiding from their feelings. They were no longer pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. Lyra found herself waking up each morning with a sense of purpose. She had always been the perfect princess, trained to lead her people, to follow the rules. But now, for the first time in her life, it felt like she was making her own choices. And for that, she was grateful. But there was still the weight of her responsibilities, the looming expectations of her people. She couldn't escape the reality that she was still a princess. Alex, on the other hand, had never been so certain about anything in his life. He had come to Teloria as a soldier, just doing his duty, but now he was here for something much more important. He was here for Lyra. He wasn't going to let anything or anyone come between them. They had come this far, and he knew that together they could overcome anything. The two of them spent their days in quiet company, taking walks through the gardens, sharing meals in the peaceful halls of the embassy, and learning more about each other with every passing hour. But Lyra's mind never stopped wandering back to the future of her people and the future of her family. It wasn't easy to let go of the life she had been raised to live. One afternoon, after a long day of meetings, Lyra invited Alex to join her in a secluded part of the embassy. The stars were just beginning to appear in the sky, casting a soft glow over the city. They sat together on a bench, the quiet of the evening wrapping around them like a blanket. "I've been thinking," Lyra said, breaking the silence. She glanced at Alex, her eyes filled with something that was both thoughtful and uncertain, about my duties, about the future, and about us. Alex looked at her, his expression gentle. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said softly. "We're in this together." Lyra smiled slightly, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I know," she said, "but sometimes I feel like I'm torn between two worlds. One is the world of my people, my family. The other is the world I've found with you. I don't know how to bring them together." Alex's heart ached for her. He understood the weight of her words, the inner conflict she was feeling. But he also knew that they couldn't keep living in fear of what could happen. They had to trust that, no matter what, they would find a way to make it work. "You don't have to choose between us, Lyra," Alex said, his voice steady. "You don't have to give up who you are. But you also don't have to give up what we have. We can make it work. We'll find a way." Lyra looked at him, her eyes searching his face, as if looking for some kind of reassurance. She had always been strong, always had her emotions under control. With Alex it was different. With him, she felt like she could be herself, vulnerable, uncertain, and still loved. "I want to believe that," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I want to believe that we can make it work. What if it's not enough? What if I'm not enough?" Alex reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. "You are enough, Lyra," he said softly. "You're more than enough. You've always been enough. You just have to believe that too." Tears welled up in Lyra's eyes, and she blinked them away quickly, ashamed of her weakness. She wasn't used to showing her emotions, but with Alex, it felt natural. She leaned into his touch, the comfort of his presence calming the storm inside her. She had spent her whole life hiding behind a mask of strength, but with him, she could be herself. "I'm scared," Lyra confessed, her voice shaking. "I'm scared of what comes next. I don't know how to handle this, how to balance everything." Alex pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. "It's okay to be scared," he whispered. "You don't have to have it all figured out right now. We'll take it one step at a time, and we'll face whatever comes together." For a long moment they sat there holding each other in the quiet of the evening. The weight of their situation didn't disappear, but somehow it didn't seem as heavy anymore. Together, they were stronger. Together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the stars twinkled above them, Lyra finally allowed herself to relax, her head resting on Alex's shoulder. She didn't have all the answers, and neither did he. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. With Alex by her side, she knew that, no matter what, they could figure it out. They would face the future, whatever it looked like, together. "I'm glad you're here," Lyra whispered, her voice full of emotion. Alex smiled, kissing the top of her head. "I'm glad I'm here too," and for the first time, Lyra believed it. Whatever came next, she knew they would face it side by side.